Has there ever been a time in your life where you ever looked back and said, I was really the dopest person that ever lived? Me, being the victim of childhood bullying and a fuck ton of years of family shit that made me feel like I would never amount to much of anything. I never thought that phrase would ever leave my mouth at all. However, in what has to be considered one of the most unbelievable experiences of my early 20s, I got the opportunity to spend a week in the lap of luxury with who has to be one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. And I've never seen her since. And I've never actually told anyone this story. So I guess I could do it here. This is the one with the Lost Weekend. I was what you called a relationship hopper. I always jumped from woman to woman, leaving about a month, maybe 2 months in between relationships before I jumped onto somebody new, which I do not think is a healthy thing to do, and I am not promoting that in any way. But however, it's what I did. I didn't like being alone, and I often tended to go from person to person. So during one of my intermediate breaks between relationships, I had started talking to some woman I met on Tinder. She was a little older, a little bit more sophisticated than I usually went for, and we would just talk all the time, texting, phone calls, video chats, whatever. It never really went beyond us just flirting with each other. The topic of meeting actually never came up. So I was out with a friend of mine at Taboo one afternoon having drinks. It was happy hour. We were just talking, having a good time, and I got a message from the girl asking if I was free for dinner. Naturally, of course, I agreed because I never thought in a million years me and this girl would actually meet in person. I thought she was like one of those invisible people that you just talk to online all the time. It's really a bot or like a lonely housewife that never had any intention of meeting me in person. So I jumped at the chance. My friend was like, just make sure you're safe. Make sure you let me know that you're okay. Let me know if you make it home, if you decide to go home, and like just keep me updated so I know you're okay. So the diner we decided to meet up at wasn't far from where I was, so I just did a quick touch-up on my face and, decided I was going to head out to meet her. I get to this diner not too far from where I was at, and I sit down in one of the booths and I let her know I'm here. Even describe what I'm wearing, this way she knows, who to look for. And I see her walk in, looks exactly like her pictures, always a plus, and she sees me, she smiles, okay, so she's not wigged out, she thinks I'm as attractive as I looked in my pictures, which back in the day, before I gained 120 pounds, I was like a real showstopper. I was low-key fine. So we sit down and we talk, and conversation just ping-pongs, and it was probably one of the most genuine first dates that I've ever had with anyone that was actually really good. No horror stories, no nothing. We talked for hours, we ate our food, we talked. She asked if I wasn't, interested in rushing home right away, that she wanted to treat me for drinks since I bought the dinner. And if you know anything about lesbians, our first dates usually last on a minimum 6 hours. There is not a lesbian on the planet that will tell you that her first date with the first woman with a woman has gone that was less than 3 hours long. It's just how we do things. So we end up going for drinks at a bar not that far away. And, we're just talking, we're flirting. It's really sweet and it's really nice. And, about an hour or two passes, we're listening to music, we're talking, and she asks if it would be presumptuous of her to ask for me to go back to her hotel with her. So she wasn't from Philly. She was actually from somewhere, I think, out like on the West Coast. I think she was from California or San Francisco or something. And she was only in town for a couple of weeks for business. And she said she has this really nice hotel suite in the city and she'd really like to take me. I could go back with her. We didn't have to do anything if I wasn't comfortable yet. We could just watch movies, get in the jacuzzi, whatever. And you know what? Why the fuck not? I didn't have work the next day. And I said, you know what? I deserve a night out. So I texted my sisters, number one, to let them know I wasn't coming home. And texted my friend, let her know that I was safe and I wasn't kidnapped or anything. And then me and her headed off to the hotel. I was not one to know about a lot of the hotels in Center City, because usually when the women I normally went out with, we wouldn't go downtown to like hook up, or if we went to hotels, I would either go to their place, my place, or we would go to whatever hole in the wall place we could find anywhere else. So this was new for me. I had never seen the bougie hotels downtown. So we go into this place, and it's, first of all, it's gorgeous, and we get to her suite. And it's like one of those, I literally felt like Julia Roberts in Pretty Women, you know, minus the whole hooker thing. But I did. It was actually really sweet, really gorgeous spot. Had like one of those like big ass fucking bathtubs, and like I call it the sex shower, like the shower with like the glass walls, and really huge bed. It was a gorgeous suite. And, you know, we got comfortable. We just talked and stuff. And she made me another drink. We were just conversing back and forth talking. And she asked if I wanted to like get in the jacuzzi. She said like, oh, like they have like a rooftop jacuzzi. You can go. And she's like, you know, if you don't have a bathing suit, she's like, it's fine, because I could always just rent out the space for like a couple of hours if you just wanted to, you know, be more, you know, keen, if you just wanted to be, you know, nude or anything. Like they're not like, she had like the funds to, you know, do that. I said, no, it's fine. I said, you know, I could just wear like my bra and underwear, you know, let it dry out or go home commando. It didn't really bother me. And she said, well, I mean, I was kind of hoping maybe you'd spend the night. So, you know, we could always, you know, have them, you know, dry out. So, you know, with that in the back of my mind, cool. So we went and we were in the jacuzzi. We were talking and flirting, really getting to know each other. She was really dope. She worked for some kind of like PR firm that did promotions and stuff for different companies, like different food companies. I think she worked for like Lay's or Hers or one of the potato chip companies. That's why she was in Philly for meetings and stuff. So, you know, conversation bound. She asked what I did. I wasn't as, you know, like professional as her, but like I let her know what I did for a living, and we just talked and stuff about that and about like our families and stuff. And I asked, you know, why she found herself flirting with someone half her age on social media when, you know, she was so refined and, you know, gorgeous and like older. Like, what did she see in someone who was like 22? And, you know, she said like she just thought like I was interesting. I was blunt. I was to the point. She said I didn't really hold back. And she said it was really refreshing to meet someone at 22 that had the same capacity and the same, you know, mental and personality as someone her age. She was like 45. But she wasn't like old white woman 45. She was like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills 45. This might actually be the only white woman that I think I'd ever been this into as far as flirting and talking online. So it was like, it was new for me. It was like definitely a pasture I hadn't taken before. So, you know, we talked, and it was actually one of the most like genuinely cool nights that I really had in a long time. We got out of the jacuzzi. We went back to the room. She had ordered like room service. She ordered us like pizza and stuff because I was starting to get a little tipsy, and she said she wanted to make sure I had all my, you know, I had all of my, you know, brain with me and stuff, because she was interested in, you know, seeing if we liked each other on a physical level. Like, she was so like sweet and genuine, and like really like, she was like so like adult about the whole thing. Like, she wanted to make sure I wasn't too drunk, because she said she wanted to have sex, and she said she didn't want me to be aware of what I was doing before like we started doing anything. So, you know, I sobered up a little bit, had some pizza, and we just like talked and stuff, and like the sex was good. It was really good, actually. And it was different for me, because I was so used to being the aggressor at the time with women, that to have someone, you know, dominate me and kind of, you know, be the one to, you know, take hold of the reins was very different for me. The older woman thing didn't really bother me a lot, because, I mean, she didn't look like she was old. Like, she looked like really young. So like that wasn't a turn off. And, you know, things went like really great. So like, you know, I'm thinking, looked at like the time, it was getting close to like real late. So I was like, oh, like, do you want me to like call a Lyft or like, and she said, no, like you can spend the night. Like, if you're not really doing anything tomorrow, like, you know, you're more than welcome to spend the night. I'd rather you not be out in the city all late waiting for a ride. Cool. Wasn't really one to do sleepovers, but you know, I was like, why the fuck not? You know, gorgeous hotel, fucking cable, fucking view of the city was phenomenal. And, you know, we ended up just talking until we both fell asleep. So I get up in the morning, you know, getting ready to, you know, get my, you know, dry drawers on and stuff and get ready to head out. And she asks if I wanted to stay for breakfast. okay, sure. Mind you, like I said, when I did meet women online just for hookups or for sex, I didn't do sleepovers. I didn't do breakfast. You pull up at my house, I pull up to yours, or we get a room somewhere, we hook up, and then that was it. I didn't do the day after. The day after was for girls I was dating. The day after was for relationship. I didn't do the day after, which is random bitches I meet on the internet. So I was a little out of my comfort zone, but I said sure. Like, she was sweet enough. Like, she asked if I wanted anything to eat, so we just kept talking and stuff. And I asked her, like, like, it's Saturday, like, I'm sure you don't really have any meetings today while you're in the city. Did you want to, like, were you planning on sightseeing or doing anything? She said no, she was really kind of just gonna, like, veg out in the hotel suite until Monday when she had her first meeting. And she asked, well, since you're off today, would you want to stay for a couple of hours, maybe go swimming, hang out here, like, you're more than welcome to stay. She's like, I really enjoyed your company last night. I'd really like to, spend more time with you. I mean, I didn't really know what to say. I mean, she was being so nice. I didn't want to say no because I didn't want to seem, like I wasn't appreciative of what we'd done all evening. But it was kind of unknown territory for me. So I didn't really want to go into it without, thinking twice. But I've also been a people pleaser my entire life, so I didn't want to say no. So I ended up saying yes. And we spent the entire day just talking and eating and having sex, like amazing sex. After the first time, it was like it got so much better. We were day drinking, watching movies, talking. It was like, even though she was so much older than me, I felt like I could connect with her in ways I couldn't connect with all the other women that I'd been dating or talking to. I don't know if it was me always being around older women my entire life, but I really felt like I could really talk to her, like have a decent conversation with her about anything, politics, life, movies, just the world. Like, it felt like she understood me in a way none of the other women that I dated understood me. So, it was getting pretty late. It was hitting like around like late night time. And I said, I should be getting out of here. Like, I have to get to work in the morning. So she said, she really didn't want the time to end. She said she kind of wanted me all to herself. So she said, how much do you usually make in a day, like at your job? And I said, I don't know. Like, I was on salary. Like, I got paid like $800-900 a week or something like that. It was around, like, I didn't really make a whole lot, but like I made enough that I was like, comfortable. I said, I don't know. I don't really break it up in a time like that. I said, why? And she's like, well, because if I were to supplement the money that you would be missing from calling out of work tomorrow, would you stay another night? Y'all, I didn't even think twice. I said, abso-fucking-lutely. I said, I will definitely stay. I said, you don't even have to pay me. I said, I'll call out right now. So I texted my boss and told him I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't come into work, which is the first time I think I ever called out of work ever since I started working when I was like 17. It was the first time I ever called out of work. And we literally spent like it was like the most amazing time that I'd ever had in my entire life. Like, it was so much fun. I felt like just so free and like open. We spent like the whole night just like talking and drinking and eating and watching TV and like the sex. Like, I have phenomenal sex with my wife now, and like she's top tier for me. But like, if there was like a second place for the sex that I was having, the sex with this woman was like number 2. Like, it was like insane. I don't know if it was the age difference, but it was like, it was all this consideration for my feelings and like what I wanted. And it was like, what the fuck is this? So the next morning, like, we have breakfast and stuff, and I'm like, well, why don't I actually take you? I can show you around. I said, you're only in town for like a couple of more days after your meetings. I said, why don't I actually show you the city? So, we go out, we do some sightseeing. I show her, like Love Park, Liberty Bell, shit like that, stuff you do downtown, art museum, so we were just like, I was like sightseeing with her. We went and we grabbed lunch, and it was just so easy, there was no expectations. And with me, I'm an overthinker and an overplanner, and usually when I did stuff like this with people, I was always thinking about like, well, what happens next, like, well, what happens when she goes home, well, what happens now? And I just wasn't. I was actually for once living in the moment. So, we have a great day out. We get back to the hotel and stuff. And I was like, well, after dinner, I said, I'm going to head out because I really should be getting home, actually change my fucking clothes and, stuff like that. And so she said, yeah, it's probably a good idea because, I do have meetings I have to prep for and stuff tomorrow. And it was like all of a sudden it kind of dawned on me like, this has to end. Like what we're doing, like, this little is like, it's going to end. So, it gets kind of like, oh my God, like, now I have to go back to the real world. And she asks, she's still going to be in town for a couple more days, like after her meetings and stuff. She said, would you mind if I got you like lifts and stuff back and forth? Would you be open to like coming back and like, hanging out with me and stuff? She's like, I'll get you lifts and Ubers back and forth. Like you can like, so this way, like you don't have to miss work. And like, I know like your family like depends on you. You can like peek in on your family and stuff. And I actually agreed. And I'm not going to go into like the full thing of like what happened but I literally spent the entire week with her. I would go to work, I would go back, I would go to work, I would go back. I'd peek in on my mom and sisters from time to time. I would make sure everybody was okay. But I stayed with her for an entire week on and off, we talked, we drank, we had sex, we talked, we drank, we had sex. We really got to know each other. And it was incredible because that Thursday, after I'd been back and forth throughout the week, on Thursday, she said, well, I leave tomorrow morning. She's like, so I don't know when I'll be able to see you again. But she's like, I just want you to know, like, this was really like a really great time for me. And she's like, I never thought that I could have that with someone, considering the fact that I'm straight and married. So then it was like, what? Come to find out, she was a married woman. She did live in San Francisco. She was married with 4 kids. They lived in like a little suburb out there in San Francisco, like in one of them cul-de-sacs. And she had only gotten online to explore what she thought was just a fantasy that she had from watching too many reruns of The L Word, and wanted to see if she could actually go all the way with a woman. And she said I was the only person on the app that she was talking to. I was the only woman that she'd ever had this type of relationship with, but that she wanted to thank me for showing her that it was okay to have these desires, that it was okay to go after what she wanted. And I couldn't believe it. Had I really been that blind to the fact that this woman had never been with a woman before? That I felt like, I low-key felt like a prostitute. Like, she really paid me to spend an evening with her. She literally, like, I felt so used. But now in retrospect, looking back on it, I can honestly say that what I was so offended by back then, like 6-7 years ago, I look at now was one of the most amazing weeks of my entire life. And I'll tell you why. For me, I'd always looked at anyone that I did those things with, I had to be in a relationship with. Like, I had to be in a relationship or be in love to really talk to you, to really open up to you, to really give a part of myself to you, part of my time, my energy, my body, everything. And this woman was the first time in my entire life that I had actually trusted someone enough to just have fun, to just let go, to let loose. And the main reason why I decided to tell this story now, when I've only ever told one other person about this entire experience, is because, well, one, that person's dead and they couldn't tell it before I could. And 2, because I've had such a rough couple of months and I really lost myself for a while, and I didn't feel like I would ever get back to that person I was before I lost myself. And I keep trying to remember, what person did I want to be? What person is it that I was trying to get back to? And I realized it's this person. The person who just did something because it made her feel good. The person who didn't care that like the situation wasn't going anywhere. The person that just followed her heart for a second instead of thinking with every other part of her. And that's the person I want to get back to. Because now in retrospect, and since, I found out recently that this woman that I had been telling you guys about, that she recently passed away, I really don't necessarily have to save her reputation. But the reason why I think me and Denise were able to have that week together was because I wasn't thinking. Everything wasn't calculated. Over the years, I've become so calculated and so down to the bone, and I overthink everything and I overanalyze everything. And that was the one time in my entire life that I didn't think 5 steps ahead. I was just out for drinks with my girlfriend, and this person I was flirting with online shamelessly asked me to meet her. And what could have just been a one-night stand ended up being a week where I felt free and I was enjoying myself. And I just was like, I didn't care. I didn't care that, I had work to do. I didn't care that people needed me. I didn't care. I just gave myself up for an entire week almost to someone, but specifically that weekend. I gave myself to someone for an entire weekend, and I feel no guilt about it. Should I feel low-key like a hooker because she paid me to stay an extra day? Probably. Should I feel away because she was lying to me the entire time and she was married and had a whole family? Probably, but I don't, because it wasn't about that part of it. It wasn't about her. It was about me. That was the first time in 29 years of my entire life that I felt like a person who just had a good time and did something because she wanted to, not because she felt like she had to, or because, this is the right thing to do. Do I regret having sex with a married woman? No. Do I regret taking full advantage of the fact that she was living in the lap of luxury for a week on a work trip? No. The only thing I feel guilty about is the fact that I've never told anybody this story. I told one person. I told a really good friend of mine who passed away about 1.5 years ago. That's the only person that knew about this. And even then, he told me if he had the opportunity to do something like that, he'd jump at the chance. And honestly, if I could do it all again, I would have called that a work for the week.